When I first got into photography, a 50mm lens was one of the first lenses that I bought. And honestly, there's a reason why so many photographers start with a 50mm. It's one of the most versatile focal lengths you can own, and you can shoot portraits with it, street photography, events, pets. It's one of those lenses that kind of does everything reasonably well. That's why it's called the Nifty 50. Recently, I've been testing out the Viltrox 50mm F1.4 Pro for the Nikon Z mount. And over the last few weeks, I've been using it the same way that I always use my gear. I took it around the city. I took it around here in Ho Chi Minh. I shot portraits with it. I use it during a pet photo shoot. I use it during my everyday walks throughout the city. And after spending some real time with it, I think Viltrox has something pretty compelling over here, especially when you consider the price. The first thing you notice when you pick this lens up is that it feels like a freaking pro lens. Look at that. I know everybody throws around the word pro these days, but this actually feels deserving of the name. The construction feels solid. You got a metal body, you got a dedicated ring aperture, a customizable function button, an AM/MF toggle switch. They also has a rubber gasket seal on the back. If you can see, it's red. They also have an on-off switch for if you want your aperture to be clicked or declicked, which is pretty nice. And honestly, it feels more expensive than it actually is. Now, with that being said, this isn't a small lens. So if you're expecting something compact like the Nikon pancake lenses, the 40mm f2 or even their 50mm f1.8, this isn't it. Here, I'll show you. So this is the Nikon 50mm f1.8s, and this is the Viltrox 50mm f1.4 Pro. So you can see how much bigger and chunkier this lens is compared to this. But saying that, there's a lot of glass in here. So that means that when there's a lot of glass, you expect there to be better image quality, sharpness, bokeh, and everything that comes along with it. I spent the last few years shooting lenses like the Viltrox 135 millimeter f1.8 Lab. I've shot with full frame lenses, the 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8. I even shot with like f1.2 lenses, 85 millimeter f1.4 lenses. So big chunky lenses I am used to. So this doesn't feel as excessive to me anymore. Shooting around Ho Chi Minh City, the one thing I noticed immediately while walking around Ho Chi Minh was how natural the 50mm feels. It's wide enough to give you context, but tight enough to isolate your subject. Now, when I'm using something like a 35mm, I find myself getting really close to people. When I'm using an 85mm, sometimes I just feel disconnected from the environment. The 50mm sits right in the sweet spot. And we gotta talk about the autofocus. So the autofocus on this lens is pretty good. It's very fast. I paired it with my Nikon Z6III, and the experience felt really, really good. When I was shooting portraits with it in Ho Chi Minh, I thought the eye tracking did really well, especially in low light scenarios. What I got was more keepers than none. I got the eyes tack sharp, and the lens did keep up without any issues paired with my Nikon Z6III. The focusing motor is quiet, it's smooth, and I never found myself second guessing whether it was going to lock onto a subject, especially when I was using it for pet photography. There were these dogs that were running around, and it was hard for them to sit still because they were overstimulated. But I was quite happy with how this lens tracked those pair of dogs that I was shooting with. Now let's talk about one of the main reasons why people buy a 50mm f1.4 lens, and that's for the look. And this lens has a really nice look to it. The transitions between focus and autofocus areas feels really, really natural. Backgrounds melt away very nicely without looking overly busy. And I also found that the lens renders the images really, really well. Skin tones look great. The separation between subject and background looks good. And I feel as though it has a special look that doesn't look overly clinical. And one thing I particularly like was how easy it was to create depth. And even in busy Ho Chi Minh City streets where you got signs, scooters, power lines, and all sorts of visual clutter, this lens makes it easy to just blur out the background. One of my favorite shoots with this lens was actually a pet session. A client hired me to photograph her two Pomeranians. If you ever photograph dogs, you know they don't exactly sit still and they wait for you. Some do if they're good boys or good girls, but they're constantly moving, especially Pomeranians. They're constantly moving. They're looking around. They're being distracted. They're running towards you, running away from you, and this is where I really appreciate both the autofocusing and the f1.4 aperture. The autofocus kept up surprisingly well with the amount of time they were spinning around and trying to chase the owner. And the shallow depth of field helped separate the dogs from the background, creating images that look polished and professional. The client absolutely loved the photo, and honestly, I think this lens played a big part in creating that look because she was asking me too. She's like, "Wow, these photos look really professional. Is this a new lens that you were using?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is a new lens. This is the lens that I'm testing out." And she was really happy with the results that I got. Let's address the thing that people always talk about is sharpness. Every lens review on the internet eventually turns into like somebody zooming into like 400%, looking at brick walls or like eyelashes or whatever it is. I honestly don't shoot that way. I care about whether a lens deliver in real world situations. And for me, shooting with the Nikon Z6III, I found the lens to be very sharp at f1.4. I have no hesitation shooting wide open with this lens. Portraits look great, street photos look great, pet photos look great. The lens produced plenty of detail for how I actually shoot, and I am quite satisfied. And when she stopped down, you get even a sharper image with greater details.
You just gotta be fearless. You just gotta be fearless. You just gotta be fearless. You just gotta be fearless.
So we gotta talk about the value. And I think this is where the lens becomes really interesting because you're getting an f1.4 aperture, a great autofocus, premium construction, aperture ring, function button, weather sealing, great image quality at a price that is significantly lower than many first-party alternatives. That's where Viltrox has been making a lot of noise recently. They're trying to deliver premium features at a price that doesn't make or your wallet cry. And honestly, I think they're doing a pretty good job of it. Would I recommend the Viltrox 50mm F1.4 Pro? Yeah, I would, especially if you're like a Nikon shooter looking for like a fast 50mm lens that feels premium without spending a fortune because there's the 50mm F1.8S. And I think this one is a little bit more expensive than the Viltrox, but it's only at f1.8. And there's also the f1.2 by Nikon, which is like freakishly expensive. I think this sits somewhere in the middle. If you want an f1.4 lens without breaking a budget, the Viltrox is really good. Autofocus is excellent. Image quality is strong. The bokeh looks great. And most importantly, it performs well during shoots. And at the end of the day, that's what matters to me. So if you guys are interested in this lens, I'll leave the links down in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It really does help me out a whole lot. And because of your continued support, I am able to make more videos like this one. And that is it for me, guys. Thanks so much.